Political battle lines are being drawn across Oklahoma as primary and general elections are approaching. In many cases, the divisions are shaping up not between Republican and Democratic candidates, but along rural and urban lines. For Oklahoma's Republican Party, there's also a fight brewing between moderates and conservatives, as each side seeks to extend its influence with the GOP.
The primary election is now less than 2 weeks away, and except for those running unopposed, candidates are campaigning to win their respective party's nomination. For Republicans in Oklahoma and across the nation, the choices are often between moderates and conservatives, and what many see as the growing influence of the Tea Party. That influence was underscored by the results of a primary election in Virginia.
The number 2 Republican in the House, Eric Cantor, said today he'll step down as majority leader following a stunning primary defeat to a Tea Party challenger.
Eric Cantor's loss to Tea Party candidate David Brat sent shockwaves through the GOP. Oklahoma State Representative Paul Wesselhoff called it a political earthquake and a sign of which way the political winds are blowing in today's Republican Party.
I think the trend is for the strong Republicans, and I think last night's election certainly solidifies that.
I think that's going to have some repercussions in Oklahoma then.
I think it will. I think it will. And not only Oklahoma, but every other state.
While crediting the Tea Party for Brad's victory, Wesselhoff is careful to distance himself from Tea Party elements in Oklahoma.
Virtually all of our conservative Republicans do not identify with the Tea Party. We may have sympathies with them, but because of their libertarian views, we don't call ourselves Tea Party Republicans. We're strong conservative Republicans in the traditional sense of the word.
Wesselhoff believes the real battle lines are being drawn between those conservative Republicans and the more moderate wing of the party, which he says is supported by the state chamber.
Well, the state chamber, not too many years ago, were viewed by the Republican Party as allies. That's no longer the case. There's a lot of division between conservative Republicans and the state chamber.
University of Oklahoma political science professor Keith Gaddy says those divisions are becoming more pronounced, forcing candidates to choose between competing interests.
Chamber candidates always have money to deploy. They always have technology and assets to deploy. The problem for Tea Party is that since there are still like 50 different Tea Party organizations in the state and no one has still been able to define what the Tea Party is, it's really hard to see that as being a cohesive threat.
Gaddy says the problem for the Republican Party in Oklahoma is that it has become a much bigger tent with several different factions.
The real trick is to find the unifying thread to pull as many of these folks together so you can win.
That unifying thread is often a national issue, such as gay marriage or gun control. State Republican Party Chair Dave Weston believes those issues trump local politics, especially in rural Oklahoma.
It's your traditional God, gays, and guns type scenarios, particularly in southeastern Oklahoma. The Democratic Party has really left those voters, and they're beginning to realize that their values do not align with those of the National Democratic Party at this point in time.
The Affordable Care Act is another issue that has divided Republicans and Democrats. While Republicans have lobbied against Obamacare, State Democratic Party Chair Wallace Collins believes the issue of health care could work to Democrats' advantage in rural Oklahoma.
One of the things that I think is important and going to be very important for the rural voters is the fact that Governor Fallin has turned down the $54 million for the Affordable Care Act, which is going to have a very negative impact on rural hospitals and rural health care.
Wesselhoff concedes some rural hospitals are likely to face tough financial futures as a result of the governor's decision not to expand Medicaid in Oklahoma, but says that's a reality rural areas face.
They're not going to get the same medical care as you get in the Metroplex. They're going to have to drive 50 miles, 60 miles. It's unfortunate, but we can't deliver the same kind of patient care to every single county as we can in the Tulsa and Oklahoma City area. It's just not practical.
House Minority Leader Scott Inman says while health care is likely to be an issue in Oklahoma's rural areas, it may not play as big a role as in previous elections.
But that's in part to the nationalization of politics. Is all of these issues here in Oklahoma City that we're dealing with at 23rd and Lincoln at the state capitol are now being viewed through a national lens. And so you may have rural legislators who should do all that they can to protect their local hospitals, but they're not because of the national politics involved.
One issue that does have local implications is water. Gaddy points out the way urban and rural voters think about water is very different.
For the urban or suburban voter, it's an inconvenience. For the rural voter, it's livelihood. And in the long run, one of the critical issues that has to be dealt with, that's of critical concern to Western Oklahoma lawmakers in particular, is water.
Collins believes the issue of water is breaking down not just along urban and rural lines, but is also prompting a geographical split.
The population is in the urban areas and they demand water, but at the same time, the rural people need water, the farmers and ranchers need water. The western part of the state is especially dry and it doesn't have near the resources that the eastern side has in that regard.
Weston doubts the issue will have much of an impact on this year's races.
Water that is not as much of an issue at this point in time, especially like selling water to Texas and things of that nature. With the drought, that's non-existent.
A hot button issue for rural areas this year is school consolidation.
If you close a school in a rural area, you close that town. Because that's the center of everything, whether it be their sports, academics, whatever. The school is the heart and soul of these rural communities. And so if you close their school, then that little town is going to blow away.
But Weston believes school consolidation isn't the issue in rural Oklahoma. It's the state's top-heavy administration structure.
I've seen research which shows that we've increased funding over the last 20 years by about 40% for common education, and yet the number of students that we're serving has only gone up by 10%. Yet what we're spending on administrators has gone up by 28%.
Republicans hold supermajorities in both the House and Senate, and Weston is optimistic the party will hang on to that advantage, even in formerly Democratic strongholds like Little Dixie in southeast Oklahoma.
And that's why we have a state representative and a state senator that represent Durant, Oklahoma. We have a Republican senator who holds Gene Stipes' former seat. Who would have thought that ever would have happened? And yet Larry Boggs is our state senator from McAllister.
We certainly have suffered some losses in Little Dixie, but by the same token, we reclaimed a House seat down there that was Democratic for probably forever, but we lost it, but we took it back. So I think that gives us some momentum for 2014.
Collins also believes a demographic shift, especially in urban areas, could have implications for the future.
55% of the kids in school, both in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, are minority kids now. So I think that also gives the Democratic Party some hope that we're going to turn these places blue.
Just who has the momentum won't be known until next fall, when the general election is held in November.